Hello again. Welcome to Jamie Explains. In this piece, one of the common sets of questions we get asked is block or no block. And every situation is different. Every person is different. You could probably talk to 3 different contractors and they will give you 3 different answers. So I am going to give you my opinion along with facts. So you actually walked in here and I'm playing with my Legos to try to show you visually what I'm talking about in a lot of these instances. So let's start with the basics. Block or no block as a basic question. What I tell people is this. We build garages high and dry, which means that you should have proper water flow away from the building. And if you can do that without adding block to it, I highly recommend it. And the biggest reason is because in the climate that we work in and live in, when frost gets into the ground, it moves the slab. And that's why you see cracks in slabs. So when it moves the slab and the slab is cracked, if you have block is not elastic. It is not going to stretch and move when the slab moves. In other words, the block is going to crack too. So in that situation, if you have the slab coming together and you have movement and it cracks, if you have a line of block right there, that block is going to spread even more at the top because again, it can't take the movement and it is not elastic. So my take on it is this: if you can build a building high and dry and do not go with block, what you are getting is a wood structure built all the way down to the concrete. The big difference is the wood is very resilient to movement. You will not know that building is being stretched and moved a little bit because wood is slightly elastic. And all the components that make up the wall of a building that's going through that movement will not fail because the slab is moving. So that is my number one answer to that question when somebody asks block or no block. So if you can go without block, go without block. That's my opinion. I don't look at things the way I'm going to say the previous generation does. And what I mean by that is it's amazing how many times I hear people say, because they always had block, that I have to have block. Now, that's not the way to look at things. The other thing I hear is, well, in case I want to wash my car in my garage and I want block there so the wood doesn't get wet. Well, I don't know anybody that washes their car in the garage when you have a car wash on every corner. Beautiful day outside, they park in the driveway and use their hose. They aren't going to use their hose inside a garage and spray it all over the walls and everything. Don't use that as a reason for having a row of block. It just doesn't really work well. Wood is resilient, block is not. So, away from that, when do you need block? Because that's really what we're talking about. There's a want block and then there's a need block. So let's talk a little bit about a need block. So in my little makeup here, playing with my toys, I have 1 row of block here, and then we see 2 courses of block here, and 3 in the corner. And we have a garage door opening. So when would you need block? First and foremost, the reason why you would need block is if you cannot maintain the 6 inches of clearance between wood siding and grade. So if the desk is grade here, we have plenty of clearance because a block is 8 inches high. So in this particular case, here's 8 inches, here's 16 inches, and here's 24 inches. So if we have a grade issue, say for instance that the driveway is coming uphill into this, but it's too steep, okay? We usually try to stay within about 1.5 inches tops per foot. That's just barely over a 15% grade. We do not want to see things steeper than that. So if we run into this situation, the right thing to do is drop this slab down into the hill. so we can reduce the slope so it's easier to get in the building. But when we do that, we run into a situation where the grade starts coming up on that block. That is exactly a reason why block is required and necessary, is when you have a situation where you're trying to decrease the slope into the building and you have to tuck your garage into the hill. When that happens, this block gets waterproofing on it, where it not only is coated with a cementatious product to densen the surface, it is also tarred to help it. And we take it one step further and we actually add a poly on it also, in addition to those other two steps, to do our absolute best to make it waterproof over the years. So that is a situation where you'd require block. The other side is a personal preference. Say for instance, for us, for economy garages, because we pre-build our wall sections, and we can pre-build them up to 10 foot in height. The other thing that can be done, we will allow up to 3 courses of block to be used, which equals 24 inches. That's 8, 16, 24. With our 10-foot wall, we'd get you a 12-foot wall height. Well, what's really key about 12-foot wall heights, a lot of times if somebody has a boat, campers, anything like that that can fit into a 11-foot garage door, which we can make that work with a 12-foot wall, those are ways that you can heighten your building with the block, so we can still pre-panelize your building on our jig so everything's perfectly square and ready to go, and it allows you to get a little bit higher in height. That is not a required block scenario unless the height of your building is required, but it is an option that can be done. With the openings in the block, we have a garage door going in here, and so then the openings in the block would be the size of the garage door, which, let's say this was a 16-foot garage door, it would be 16 foot 4.5. That 4.5 inches allows for a 2x4 on each side. If there's block there, we have to put green treated against that block. Any contact with grade has to be properly done. And the jamb, which is a 3/4 jamb around all the way around the garage door. So those are really the big keys as far as dealing with block. Understand, block is porous. If it is not sealed from the outside, water will flow through it. It's called seeping. If you put a block in about 1 inch of water and come back in 24 hours, that block is going to be probably fully saturated. It does suck up water like a sponge, which means if you had high moisture on the outside below grade, it is going to seep through and leach out on the inside. That's why it is protected. And the other thing people don't think about, if you just have a course of block because you want a course of block and all of it is 100% above grade, I highly recommend that you seal the outside of that block. And the reason for that, if we have an extended rain event and it's pouring off the eaves and it's splashing against the block, or driving winds are running down the siding and saturating that block, you saturate that block on the outside long enough and it's going to work to the inside and seep into the building. That is not something that is covered under a warranty. That is just a piece that it happens, and it's required by the homeowner to put something as simple as a house paint. That is probably the most common sealer used in this case, because even using a house paint to make it look like the foundation of your house, for instance, seals that outside. And the reason why you do not seal the inside in that case, because this block has to be able to dry out if it does get wet. So you want to keep one of the sides open so you can get the block to stay dry. So those are some of the key points in block, the way I see it, and keep that in mind when you're laying out your building and talking to our salespeople. If you don't need it, don't use it. We'll see you in the next segment.